Hey everyone, this is Schism here. I got a 2,500 point bat rep. My Warriors of Chaos versus Ogre Kingdoms. Starting off on my opponent's left, he has 4 lead belchers. He's got a Meow Meow Saber-Tusk Kitty here. To the right of that, he has 18 Iron Guts. And in that unit is a Bruiser BSB with an Armored Silver Steel, Great Weapon, and a Lux Stone. The banner has the Banner of Discipline. And yeah, this is one gross uber massive death train that I'm going to try and avoid at all costs. Next to that, he has 9 Ogre Bulls, and in the middle there, behind his full command in this second rank, is a level 4 Slaughtermaster with Armor of Destiny, Dispel Scroll, Iron Fist, and Sword of Might for some Strength 5 goodness. For his spells, he rolled up Toothcracker, Bull Gorger, Troll Guts, and Spine Marrow. So they're all pretty close combat buffs, so he will have to keep that unit close to his Ogre Death Star there to get full effect. To the right of that, he's got 4 lead belchers. To the right of that, he has a pair of Meow Meow Kitties, and behind that, he has an Iron Blaster. And rounding out his forces on the far right, he has 2 Mournfang Cav, kind of like an Uber Chariot here on the far right flank. So starting off on my left, I have 3 Dragon Ogres with additional hand weapons. We treated those giant hills there as impassable terrain, and I wanted to keep them 6 inches away from my puppies in case they got shot by the lead belchers and they have to take a panic test, and I don't want them fleeing through my Dragon Ogres and causing all sorts of duress. So they're kind of awkwardly positioned there, and I didn't want to put them up on the far flank on the other side of the hill there, because if I did that, I'd have to go single file. And if I charged into the lead belcher's single file, I don't know if I'd be able to get enough combat res to be able to stick. So there they are, kind of awkwardly positioned on this far left flank. So to the right of that, there is 5 Warhounds, and then another 5 Warhounds. And on the other side of that forest there is a Pain train of 3 Gorebeast chariots with Mark and Nurgle each. Behind that is the unkillable BSB on a demonic mount. He has a Talisman of Preservation, Market Sneech, Helm of Many Eyes, and Enchanted Shield. To the right of that unit, there is 22 Chaos Warriors with a Mark and Nurgle. And in that far left corner there is a level 3 with a Dispel Scroll, and he's rocking Mark and Nurgle as well. For his spells, he rolled up Curse of the Leper, so good toughness buff and debuff. Rancid Visitations for some direct damage, and Fleshy Abundance for some regen saves, which I probably need against that many Strength 6 Hoarded Great Weapon Ogre attacks if I get into combat. To the right of that, there's 22 more Warriors with a Mark and Nurgle. And to the right of that, there is my Demon Prince with Wings, Chaos Armor, Scaled Skin, Charm Shield, Soul, Fetal, Mark and Nurgle, and a Sword of Striking to help him out to hit in close combat. And behind him, there's 3 more Dragon Ogres with additional hand weapons rounding out my flank. So I win turn 1, and both my Woof Woofs move up as fast as they can to move up and try and chaff up his Death Star there. And once they move ahead, I move my Dragon Ogres out 14 inches back to the center of the board. And the rest of my army moved up like so, almost a full advance. And you can see my Demon Prince behind the impassable hill there. So he's got a good angle so we can charge anything on to the left of him there. So the Iron Guts, the Meow Meow Kitties, and, you know, the big cannon there if it rears its head around the corner there. And I move my Dragon Ogres up kind of cautiously here on the far right, because I'm pretty sure in an even combat without any charging going on, the Dragon Ogres probably have a pretty good chance because of the volume of Strength 5 attacks to probably beat the Mournfang. But if he gets a charge, and those extra D3 Strength 5 impact hits will completely wipe out at least a whole Ogre. So if he gets the charge, I'm done in. If I get the charge, I have a good chance of winning it. So I move up cautiously. So if he does do a charge, odds are I'll probably fail it, and that'll give me the charge. And if he doesn't charge, or if he stays still, I still have a decent charge. So Ogre's turn 1, he moved up his lead belchers here, and he arced him to the right to take a shot at my Demon Prince, and he got off Toothcracker on that unit because the Demon Prince is facing off directly against him. He tried to get off another buff on him, but I dispelled that. I left Toothcracker go because I figured an extra toughness 5 won't be too bad. I'll still wound him on 3s, then I'll hit with 2s. He took a shot with his big giant cannon, and he rolled a 1 to wound, so my Gorbeast Pain Train stays alive and in unison. His lead belchers here open up through the woods and all that good stuff in long range, so he only managed to kill one of my Woof Woofs. And over here, my turn 2, I take my Demon Prince and I slam him into these Iron Guts. Ogres are kind of tricky for a Demon Prince because they have multiple wounds, so I'm going to have to do 6 wounds just to stop him from being steadfast, because I got to break at least, he has to have less than 3 models. So he's going to be steadfast here for a few rounds unless I can really do the damage. So I got to really avoid rolling 1s and 2s. And I do manage, he moved up a tiny bit with his Mornfang here, so I did manage to get the charge off. I think I needed a 8 or a 9, and I did manage to get it with my Dragon Ogre, so a lot better odds there. He moved up his Meow Meow Kitty on right in the left flank of his Iron Guts, so I took this opportunity, since my hounds were in the side, I charged him through the forest, and I got his flank. So now if I do win this combat, which is possible but not likely, because Mornfang will still be able to slap around Warhounds, generally, at least all of my previous experiences. But I charge the flank, so if I do beat him, I can possibly overrun into him, and then we'll have to fight that combat during his next turn, which will gum up his Iron Gut bust here for 1 turn, which would be really, really good. And just in case, I take this other unit of hounds here, and I throw them right in front of the Iron Gut unit, so they have no choice but to trip up on them. And I move up my Gorbeast Chariots to square off against his Iron Gut horde, because if he charges the kitties in front, I mean the Warhounds in front, it'll be a pretty easy charge for these Chariots to get into him, and I don't like taking really anything into the unit, but if I'm going to, it'll probably be 3 of these Chariots all in unison, and that might be able to do something, because I really don't have any other answers for this unit with my army, so if I have to do something, I'll throw the Chariots at it. And the rest of my army here on the right flank just kind of moves into the center of the board to face off against the rest of his army. I do manage to get F Rancid Visitations in the magic phase, and I throw it at one of his Meow Meow Kitties here. Hopefully I'll be able to cause some panic tests. But his general's right in the middle of that unit, and it does give his leadership 9 to these units here. So I didn't panic. I want to try and panic the Iron Blaster or this other kitty off the board, so I wouldn't have to worry about it, but they both passed. So in the combat here, he flubs all his attacks, and I managed to do 1 wound to the Meow Meow Kitty, and he breaks from combat, and I overrun into the flank of his Iron Guts. So this is awesome. This combat will be fought during his turn, so he'll be stuck there, and he'll probably utterly decimate them, but then he'll just have to reform to face my other unit of hounds during his next turn. In the combat here, my Demon Prince is a complete and total ninny, and he only does 1 wound to the Ogres. Hurrah. And the combat here, I roll really decent. I managed to strip off 4 wounds on the Mornfang Cav, so I take a whole model off before he can even, we fight Simo here. And he manages to do 4 wounds to me in total, which is a little more than I expected, considering he didn't have the charge. But I win the combat because of a charge. However, he does stick his leadership here. So Ogre's turn 2, he rallies his Saber Tusk here, and it rallies right in front of his General's unit, so they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And he takes his other Meow Meow Kitty, and he moves him more into the board to try and gum me up a little. And he reforms his General's unit to face away so he can move up a little, barring his kitty, which rallied right in front of him. His Lead Belchers here move up into the forest to take a pot shot. He wants to try and panic the dogs in front of his Iron Guts there, just so he doesn't, if he creates that unit to flee, then he doesn't have to worry about charging it during his turn and getting gummed up. So we'd rather just force a panic and have him run away. In the magic phase, he managed to get Bull Gorger and Toothcracker on these units, so they're strength 5, toughness 5. So they're some pretty stalwart ogres here, but that shouldn't deter the Demon Prince from hopefully slapping him around. And in this phase, he misfires with his Iron Blaster, and he rolls the result so it can't fire anymore. So it's just an Uber Chariot. And in the combat here, he does 3 wounds to me, and I do 2 wounds to him. So, but he only had 2 wounds left, so I destroy him, and I just reform. In the combat here, I managed to strip off 3 more wounds off these ogres, but it's not enough. He's still steadfast. His general's right there, so he's steadfast at a 9. And I even believe his BSB is still in range. He's unable to scratch me because the Demon Prince is pretty amazeballs, but I'm stuck again in these ogres for another turn, which is not ideal or optimal for a Demon Prince. So in the combat here, he just makes mincemeat of the dogs, and he just reforms to face the other dogs. And I think he failed to hit my Woofs there in front of the unit with his lead belchers there. I think, or he had to march into the woods. I'm not sure why he didn't shoot him, but I think he moved out. He had to march, so he couldn't march and fire into the woods there to get an angle on the Woofs. I'm pretty sure that's how it went. But anyways, the Dragon Ogres move up. I reform them. I don't reform them. I just keep wheeling until I get around to a good angle, and I bring them about to face against the lead belchers. I leave them in the woods. I know it's a longer charge, but I'd rather have the cover for a turn until I'm ready to get into range to actually charge him, because lead belchers will do a serious amount of hurt because of the armor piercing rule on the Dragon Ogres. So I don't want to. I want to try and stop him from hitting as much as possible. So I take my unit with my sorcerer and I charge his Meow Meow Kitty. My BSB moves over to give his rerollable leadership to this whole side here. And my other unit moves up to support. My Dragon Ogres round around the impassable terrain here to try and goad his chariot into a charge. I'd love to charge him in the side with my Dragon Ogres. I'll probably be able to beat him down, especially with the combat res. But since he's no longer a cannon, he's just going to try and use it as a chariot now anyways, so. In the magic phase, out of desperation, I just throw, with lack of better things to do. I can't do rancid visitations in combat, so I throw fleshy abundance on these hounds, thinking that if I could possibly maybe save one from the shooting, or a few from the shooting, then they won't panic, or in combat, or I could break on double ones, or what, for whatever reason, I just throw it on there. And the main reason I just want to cast spells is I just want to try and buff up my sorcerer. And I did manage to get it off this phase, so my sorcerer is now toughness 5 with an extra wound. So he's got 4 wounds and toughness 5, which is pretty amazing. Love that Nurgle lore there. So I destroy his Meow Meow Kitty, and I reform to face his other unit of bulls here. And in the combat, I managed to take off 3 more wounds off these lead belchers, and I finally break his steadfast. And he panics, and I run him down, and that puts me right in front of his bull unit here, which is kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing. Good thing that I'll be able to tie up these bulls. Bad thing, he'll be able to tie up my Demon Prince. So I really need to get some ranks in there to support, so I'll be able to cancel his. His turn 3 gums me up with his Iron Blaster in the flank of my Warriors unit here. And he elects not to charge my Woofs here, and he just he wheels over his lead belchers a little bit here to take some shots, because he doesn't want to get drawn any closer to my chariots. In the magic phase, he gets Toothcracker off again on these ogres, so these are toughness 5 ogres. And he shoots with his lead belchers. He does a whole gaggle full of wounds, and I managed to save 2 because of the fleshy abundance, so I actually get to take a leadership test here to see if I get to not panic. And I fail my panic test, and I run directly away. I should have ran the other way. I realized this was a mistake. I should have ran away from the lead belchers, which would have drawn me more into the innards of my army. But I didn't really think about it, and I just ran towards my board edge, which was a mistake, and a costly one at that. And my Dragon Ogres passed their panic test there. In this phase, he does 6 wounds, so a hearty toll against my Chaos Warriors here. I managed to do 1 wound to the Iron Blaster. He wins this combat, so he sticks around. And over here, I managed to strip off a whole entire Ogre. Yay, very impressive. In my turn 4, I take my Warriors here to add my ranks, banners, and charge to this. So, and a whole lot of attacks. And I take my 3 chariots and I go for this. I needed 7s or 8s with everything, and I make 2 out of the 3 charges, which is pretty horrible. So I throw 2 of my Gorbeast chariots in there just to see what they can do. If anything's going to survive a bunch of Horde of Iron Guts, it'd probably be the Gorbeast chariots, because he's going to need 5s to hit me. And hopefully that'll be able to mitigate out a lot of his attacks. But not really. I really want to get all 3 in. But 2 out of 3, I guess, is better than 1 out of 3, so I really can't complain too much. My Dragon Ogres march full steam ahead to support the Demon Prince, and my Hounds fail to rally and go straight through my Dragon Ogres, and my BSB moves up like so to give his rerollable leadership to anything that he needs. Over here, he managed to do 2 more wounds to my Chaos Warriors, and I failed to do any wounds to him, but I win because of combat res, and I break him, and I choose to reform with my Sorcerers, and I choose to pursue with my other unit of 22 Marker Nurgle Warriors, and they fail to catch him, so his Iron Blaster lands right where he is. So in this combat here, I roll pretty bad for impact hits, but I still managed to do 11 wounds off the Iron Guts. And then he hauls off with like 32 attacks or 36 attacks on both chariots. And yeah, I quickly learned that this was a mistake. And yeah, both these chariots get utterly decimated, which was not good whatsoever. So then his turn 4, after my failed attempt to try to do any hurt to that unit. I mean, he rolled really good against those Gorby's chariots. I mean, he hit with probably about 45% of all of his hits, which was huge. And he only needs 4s to wound me, and then my armor save goes up to a 6. So I should have really done the math in my head better. So during his turn, he takes this opportunity to charge my BSB. I flee. He attempts to redirect in my other Gorby's chariot, and I want no part of it, so I flee once again. And he fails his charge and ends up right there. He rallies his Iron Blaster to face off against my Warriors, and he just moves his Lead Belchers here to fire at my Dragon Ogres. In the magic phase, he gets off Toothcracker again on his unit, so they're toughness 5s to make it harder for my Demon Prince to do some wounds here. And in the shooting phase, he managed to peel 1 wound off my Dragon Ogre, so it pays to be in a forest. And in this combat phase, I do 1 wound to his Ogres, which is pretty paltry. Very horrendous showing for the Demon Prince, but, you know, I guess he's not meant to be into a giant pit of Ogres. And my turn 5, I take my Dragon Ogres, and I literally needed, I couldn't tell you, I pretty much needed anything but a 3 to make this charge. And what do I roll? I roll a 3 on my charges. So that was a horrendous failure. I think if I got these Dragon Ogres into close combat with all 4 of them, I would have easily been able to mop up this unit. Because of this failed charge, it really hinders my ability to do anything, because now I have to wither another whole round of shooting, and that's not pretty. I try to rally my BSB, and he fails, so he keeps running. And I try to rally him first, and he fails, so he keeps running. And then I try and rally my Gorby's chariot, and he passes. Go figure. I take my wizard, and I move him out of the unit, just in case that Iron Gut unit goes for a long bomb charge. I don't want him to be able to charge my sorcerer. I don't want him in the unit if it gets in contact with that Iron Gut unit, because anything that gets in contact with it is going to be deleted. So he's up. The arrow's pointing to him. You can't see him. He's hidden. He's in the trees there, right next to my Demon Prince. I take my other unit of 22 Marker Nurgle Warriors, and I throw it into the Iron Blaster to try and finish this thing off again. And my Dragon Ogres go into the flank of the Bulls. In the magic phase, I cast Rancid Visitations, and I completely delete this Saber Tusk. And I managed to roll a 6 on the lore again, so my Wizard Lord gets +1 toughness and +1 wounds, so now he's toughness 6 with 5 wounds, I believe, which is pretty amazing. And I got Fleshy Abundance off on these Dragon Ogres here to try and improve their survivability. And in the phase here, I managed to do 1 wound to the Iron Blaster. He does nothing to me. He is defeated in combat, and this is where I make a huge mistake. And I don't try and run him down. He flees straight through the combat and ends up on the other side. But I don't try and catch him, so he has a chance to reform, and his general's right there on a leadership 9. And I reform this unit to face the center of the board. And I was probably thinking that I would be able to threaten the flank of the Iron Guts. But in hindsight, if they did make the charge, or they probably reformed to face me. And if they did make the charge against my Warriors unit, they would have probably deleted it and just overran. or reform to face them. So this was, in my opinion, a pretty big mistake. My Demon Prince has been stuck chewing on these yogurts. These yogurts. Yeah, this big giant unit of yogurts with the Slaughter Master for, over almost 2 turns now. And what I really need is some ranks and some banners in there to be able to negate his steadfast. And I had a prime opportunity to do it right here, and I did not. So this combat goes on, and he does 3 wounds to my Dragon Ogres despite having Fleshy Abundance up. He does a wound to my Demon Prince, and I managed to do 5 wounds to him in return. I think he ends up winning this combat, but my Dragon Ogres stick. And his turn 5, he just takes his Iron Guts, and it's kind of a long charge. I think he needed 8s or 9s to get in my Warriors. And so he just reforms to face both of them here. And he does manage to rally his Iron Blaster, so that sucks for me. His Gorger finally came in on this turn. He was rolling 1s for that to come in pretty much the whole game. So he comes on to try and help out over here, and he's got his Iron Blaster to go into my Dragon Ogre as well. So a huge mistake not trying to race that thing down. In the Magic phase, he irresistibly gets off Toothcracker on this unit yet again. And in the miscast, he loses 2 Wizard levels, and he loses Toothcracker and one of the other spells. I don't remember which one, but he didn't try and cast it. So the Lead belches with a renewed opportunity to frag some Dragon Ogres. Peels off the last 3 wounds on that one Dragon Ogre. Makes me take a panic test on an 8, and I fail, so I run away, so that charge never happened. However, my turn 6, I do manage to rally my Dragon Ogres, but guess who does not decide to rally? My BSP. He decides to flee yet again from my board edge, so there he goes. In my combat here, I get off Curse of the Leper, so +3 toughness on this Dragon Ogre, because I don't want to give up the points. This is the one unit I have that's really in danger of being destroyed, and a game this close, I really don't want to give up the points. So making him toughness 7 at this point will make him very hard for his Iron Blaster or his Gorger to do any damage to it. And my Wizard, as you can see, moved up and behind to get out of the way of that giant Death Star of Ogres. In the combat phase here, I do 5 more wounds to his Ogres, so I'm finally starting to show some results and chew down this unit. However, a little too late here. Ogre's turn 6, he takes his Iron Blaster and his Gorger into my Dragon Ogre to try and finish it off. So that's not good if I give up those points. This game is really down to the wire. And then this happens. He needed, in my movement phase, I neglected to show my turn 6 movement phase. I took both my Warriors units and I moved it back. You can see I'm almost next to this impassable terrain now. I moved back as far as I could, my full 2 inches. So he needed like a 10 to make this charge. So he said, screw it, and he threw the dice, and he rolls double 6s. So in a game that I thought that was really, really close and down to the wire, I probably had him edged out because of the Mournfang and the Lead Belcher points I picked up. I mean, he only scored at this point 2 Gorbeast Chariots, and yeah, just 2 Gorbeast Chariots, and I picked up the Mournfang, the Sabertusk, and the Lead Belchers. So this was really down to the wire, and then this happens. You know, I'm marking Nurgle, so yeah, he's hitting on me on 5s, but the amount of attacks these guys throw out is just absurd. It's just stupid. So in the Magic phase, he gets off Troll Guts on this unit, and he miscasts it, and he does 1 wound to his caster, so it gets off irresistibly. He does 1 wound with his Lead Belchers here, which on my Gorbeast Chariot. And in the combat here, my Dragon Ogre does 2 wounds to the Gorger. He does no wounds to me, not through impact hits, the Iron Blaster there, or his Gorger. So I feel fortunate there. I think the Curse of the Leper was pretty key in keeping him alive. Otherwise, he would have just been completely pulverized. In the combat here, my highly trained and skilled Chaos Warriors, the Lords of Murder, encased in peanut shell armor, decide to haul off and do a single wound to the Iron Guts. So any hope I had of doing anything to this unit was completely thwarted by my inept ability to attack anything. And then he goes and he kills 9. He kills 9 of my Warriors of Chaos. He has more ranks than me and all that good stuff. So I'm not steadfast. I'm on Snake Eyes, and I run right off the board. Well, I shouldn't say that. He just catches me, so I get destroyed. So what was a close game in my mind just really got blown wide open. And there you can see he pursues and he runs down my unit. And that leads to the end of the game. It ends up being an Ogre's victory. This one was a nail biter down to turn 6 in that last charge. I think that unit of Chaos Warriors was just over 400 points. So there you see it. The Ogres with 769 victory points. The Warriors of Chaos with 375. So yeah, so some notes here. The long bomb guts are definitely the highlight of the game. That unit is pretty disgusting, and I guess if you have the right tools to deal with it, i.e., shadow magic or something like that, it's really not that scary. But I didn't have those tools available to me, so I had to use what I had, and I thought the Gorby's chariots might be an answer to it, especially in tandem with each other. But obviously, that didn't turn out to be such a great idea. However, it didn't really cost me the game. I was still up at that point. It was that long bomb gut charge, and just sometimes you just gotta roll those dice. And if you roll boxcars, yeah, that was an 18-inch charge right in my face. So yeah, that was a pretty pivotal moment in the game. The BSB, for a guy who doesn't really die at all, he sure liked to run this game. He definitely didn't really shine at all. If anything, I would have loved to shove him in front of that gut unit and just have him absorb some damage. Odds are I'd be able to actually survive a couple rounds of combat and preserve my whole entire army. But I decided to flee, figuring I could rally, on a leadership 8. But I was proven wrong by him. And then the Iron Blaster disaster. There's definitely, not pursuing the Iron Blaster the second time, reforming, I think, was really where I went wrong. Had I been able to do that, I would have got my warriors into a prime position to charge that gut unit, not the gut unit, the bull unit with the Slaughtermaster. I would have added my ranks, added my banners, added some attacks, and I probably would have broke his steadfast and chased down that unit. That would have freed up my Demon Prince to do whatever he had to do, pick up some points in the board, and that unit would have been a whole slew of points as well. So that really for me was, I'm kicking myself for not doing that. That was a big mistake. So the Iron Blaster disaster, and which leads to the next one, was the Demon Prince Tar Pit, which go in tandem with one another. That unit, the Ogres are really good at keeping their ranks with 3 wounds apiece, especially against something like a Demon Prince when I can't Thunderstomp them. So that was very frustrating to keep my Demon Prince in that unit pretty much the whole entire game. He only got into contact with 2 things, the Lead Belchers, which it took him long enough to chew through them. But then once he got in that gut unit, he really can't do it alone. He really does need ranks when he doesn't have a Thunderstomp. So there you have it. Victory to the Ogres. Thank you very much.